Welcome back, everybody. This is Glowed Up and Woke. I am Mario Gonzalez Lam, and today I'm putting forth my model for the science behind God. What is God? How can we understand God scientifically? So, in order to begin, I'm going to give a quick recap of morphogenetic field theory put forward by Rupert Sheldrake. Dr. Rupert Sheldrake has a bunch of work that he presents in social media, so I do invite you to check that out. He's an amazing guy. So one of the things that morphogenetic fields tells us is that the so-called laws of physics and the laws of nature that we have described are more like tendencies. They are actual tendencies of behavior which is happening all the time, and the behavior itself is being guided by fields. So the field and the structure of the field is guiding the behavior of the molecules and the atoms that make up the reality, and also everything from electrons to the cell to the tissue that cell belongs to and the organ that tissue belongs to. These are all guided by fields, energetic fields, morphogenetic fields, and these fields are all nested inside one another, nested hierarchies. So the field of the molecules in the cell are nested inside the field of the cell, which is nested inside the field of the tissue and the organ and the whole body, and then the country that I'm part of, the whole planet, then the solar system. It's all fields within fields. And if another theory is a torsion field theory, which I am combining with morphogenetic field theory. So if you stay with me, all I'm saying right now is that the guiding force, the fields that guide the behavior of, for example, the solar system, right? We know that behavior is guided by not the planets themselves, but invisible forces that act upon the planets. The spin of the planet and the orbit of a planet is not determined by the planet. It's determined by gravitational fields and other fields that we may not fully understand yet. But we do know that there are non-physical forces acting upon the physical forces to determine their behavior, their spin, their speed, and basically all the properties of the physical components, physical world, are determined by these invisible forces. So with this concept, we know that the fields are organizing behavior, and if you want to check out morphogenetic field theory, Dr. Rupert Sheldrake explains how the way that we design, the way our cells are able to design the form of my hand, for example, it's not simply due to genetic material which is inside the cell, because that genetic material is about 99% the same as a chimpanzee or a banana. And, we have the same genes. The genes are like the building blocks. But the design, the actual creative architecture of why is my hand so differently shaped than the hand of a chimpanzee, for example, is determined by the morphic fields. These are fields that are guiding the behavior of things. Okay, so now how does that happen? Why are the laws of physics actually more like tendencies than they are like laws? What happens is that there is a space-time memory in the fabric of space, and it's receiving, there's like grooves that develop in there, right? Just like grooves in a record, when you listen to an album, you put the needle that doesn't have to find its way. It's simply going along the groove, and it's playing whatever has been etched into the record. Similarly, when a behavior in nature is successful, it's edging a route. Imagine like an electromagnetic field. You know how they have this shape where they go like this, the north end, and then it projects out and then goes back into the southern end of the body that's producing the electromagnetic field. So if it was the Earth has an electromagnetic field, and the lines of current run like this, and they create sort of grooves so that it happens on both sides. It goes like that. They create these grooves so that all the electrons are traveling on this path. That's similarly, morphogenetic fields create a groove. And in my opinion, morphic fields and electromagnetism might be way more related than Rupert Sheldrake ever describes in the books that I have read by him. But if you stay with me, the reason that some things seem like laws of physics is because the behavior has happened so many times, especially when it comes to physical phenomena like crystals and rocks. The way that these molecules have learned to arrange themselves into tight-knit structures that have been highly successful in the past has been these structures have been so successful, and they've been doing it for so long that the grooves on the record of how to structure a solid crystal are very, very, very defined, so that when the molecules are trying to figure out how to take shape, they almost automatically every single time fall into the same pattern of behavior, and therefore give us the same structures, and therefore we have very predictable tendencies. But even if the tendency is super, super predictable, it doesn't make it a law. And now we know beyond measure of a doubt, thanks to quantum physics, that molecules don't behave predictably. The building blocks of life that make up all these other things that do behave predictably, like a crystal, or the formation of a crystal, or the movement of a planet. The planet's movements is very predictable because they've been doing it for so long. But the little molecules that make up the planet, their behavior is not that predictable. And the lower into the subatomic scale that you get, the more chance for randomness you get. Because in the quantum field, every possibility exists. It's sometimes called the 0-point field, where nothing has been labeled, nothing has been determined. There has been no grooves etched into the fabric of space-time, and therefore the behavior of these molecules is completely unpredictable, even to the point where they can be in more than one place at once. That's called quantum superposition, and that's a big part of the Ork-Or theory of consciousness, which is going to be part of this presentation. But right now we're focusing on that there are these fields of energy that are organizing the behavior, even complex behavior, such as the behavior of bees, for example. Everything in nature, everything from the subatomic particle to the atoms, to the molecules, to the cells, and single-celled anemia, plankton, bees and plants all around us, they're all basically grooving. They're all listening to and responding and being guided to this like universal song and like a groove, which is in the form of electromagnetic resonance, and which is also grooved into and etched into the space-time memory of the space-time continuum, the fabric of space-time continuum, so that it's almost like they're going to the same beat, and they're dancing the same dance, right? There's like the dance moves have already been decided. It's like almost like a traditional dance that everything in nature is dancing. And this dance, the reason that the behavior gets repeated so much is because it has been successful in the past. So take, for example, if you were trying to get home from work, right? Every day you go to work, you come home from work, and there's a field that you have to cross in order to get to your house. Now, the first time that you approach this field, you have to pick, where do I enter this field and where do I cross the field? Your choice is going to be highly random because it all looks the same. But the second time that you come to this field, you're going to see the path that was made by the first time that you traversed and you crossed this field. So when you cross the field, you left a little path. You're much more likely to take that same path the next time, assuming that you got home and that it was a successful path. So, and then the more you use that path, the more likely you'll be to use it again. And not only that, but then more likely the next person that comes along this field will take the same path because it's been edged into it, the path. There's a groove there that allows for an easier path of less resistance and higher likelihood of success. So these routes in nature that yield the highest probability, statistical probability for success, they get repeated over and over and over by similar organisms. So that's what I mean by the dance has already been decided. It's like a traditional dance, and the music is like as old as time. And but everything from the bees to the clouds and the behavior of the ocean is in a sense, determined by these tendencies, but they're not fixed by laws. So when we start to think of this guiding force, right, which is a field of energy, and the field of energy, the torus field model of how these fields are structured and how they flow, teaches us that there's like a central column. So in HeartMath Institute, where they can demonstrate empirically, scientifically, that there's a vortex field, a torsion field being generated by the heart. And in fact, there are there's fields within fields within fields that look exactly the same, and which feed information all the way into the central column of all the fields. And it goes all the way up through the whole body, and then it connects to the field of the planet, and then that goes all the way up to the level of the solar system. And all this information gets funneled all the way back down to the tiniest little tube in your heart. And that's why in my previous videos I have said that in order to connect with the source, or the quantum wide web of living information of the universe, the universal, creative information, we need to be in the heart center. And I'm not the first to say it. Turns out all the different religious traditions and all the spiritual traditions are saying the same thing. Could it be that they had a very profound scientific understanding of all these things and simply could not convey it in scientific language because that language was not available at their time? Could it be that the only way to convey it is through parables and metaphors, and that they were actually describing something very, very real in science? I believe so. And if you believe so too, I invite you to contribute and help postulate and any kind of ideas that you may have. Because like I said in my other video, if we were trying to describe the internet to people, even just like in the 1800s, we would have never been able to do it without the use of parables, analogies, and metaphors. We wouldn't have some sort of diagram that we can show them in the 1800s, assuming that we didn't bring, a computer with us to actually show them. How can we explain computers to them? How can we explain movies? So the morphic fields and the fact that there's these nested hierarchies gives us a concept of this greater consciousness, or this greater intelligence, this greater organizing principle, which is guiding the behavior of all other things. And this can be likened to God in the sense of like God the Father who is in heaven. Heaven meaning above, in the higher, in the non-physical, in the invisible level of creation happening, right, in that where inspiration happens, where motivation happens, where chi power it's absorbed through. And when you get really inspired and you get very stoked about something, you're literally getting filled with more chi power. You're amping up the amount of electromagnetic power available to you in your system, the amplitude of it. And you're not necessarily just raising your frequency. That can be misleading. It's not just about raising your frequency. It's about balancing and harmonizing the system so that the system becomes amplified and you're able to receive and tune into information from the quantum wide web, like I said, the cosmic field. And then we can think of the concept of grace, right? So we have a Father in heaven, as above, so below. As we think, so this information gets broadcasted into the field of our environment and begins to shape all the molecules in our environment to basically form or mold into what our thinking is doing. So we tune in and we receive the information or the inspiration. We receive whatever sort of vibe you're feeling that day. Like if you're feeling like really positive and happy, then you're receiving, you're connecting to more of that same vibration, more of that same frequency, which is broadcasting that frequency of negativity into the space around you, and really determining what sort of events get attracted to you and what sort of events don't get attracted to you. Again, as above, so below. This is a biblical concept that can be explained very scientifically. And I will have to continue from here because I'm out of time, but I will make another video describing grace and how grace happens via resonance entrainment. Thank you very much, and Sat Nam.